Rolling? Okay, here we go. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I can change the world with my own 2 hands, make a better place.
So I work at Avaz.org, which is a global online campaign network. It's about 3.8 million people around the world, in every country. And we try to close the gap between the world we have and the world most people everywhere want. And the way we do that is by finding ways for global public opinion to affect global decision making. So what I actually do day to day usually involves sitting in front of a computer a lot, but I essentially will send an email to 3.8 million people saying, this government is trying to block a global climate treaty. Let's flood them with phone calls and petitions and messages, and people will, sign petitions and flood them with thousands of calls, and then we'll, bring a group of people to, let's say we did this a lot in Germany during their election this fall. Angela Merkel's the Chancellor of Germany, and she would be speaking somewhere, and we'd have a huge crowd of people show up in green hard hats and white jumpsuits with signs, and they'd chant things and eventually get her attention, and they'd hand over the signatures of all these people and try to get her to make commitments on climate change, which after this happened enough times, she started doing. So the goal is to find ways to channel something that people want intensely and their leaders aren't doing, to find ways for the voices of people to be heard by the decision makers who need to make the right decisions, and create enough political pressure that they actually do the right thing.
And how do you know that you're having an impact, that what you do is effective? Sometimes
we have no idea. Sometimes it's very clear. I think that the clearest time for us, it was in 2007. I run our climate change campaigning, so a lot of my stories are about climate change. In 2007, there was this global United Nations negotiation around climate treaty, which they're still working on. Japan was blocking progress on one of the key questions, and we built this international petition. It was hundreds of thousands of people signed it, and we bought an ad in the Jakarta Post, which is the newspaper in Indonesia that was distributed at the conference, and it was like the Titanic movie poster, with, instead of Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio, it was George Bush and Harper from Canada, and then the Prime Minister of Japan. And it said, "No icebergs, just global disaster coming soon if we don't get this climate treaty. This is a play on the Titanic." And we handed out copies of the ad to everyone at the summit, and we made big blown up copies and had a press conference. And Japan changed its position at the summit. And then it turned out, we got a phone call a couple of weeks later from the biggest newspaper there, and they asked us if they could reprint the ad. We said, sure, why? It turned out that the environment minister had waived that newspaper advertisement at the cabinet meeting with the prime minister and said, is this how we want the world to see us, as blocking the world's progress on climate change? And that's the meeting where they decided to change their position, and the opposition party for years after that had a huge blow-up of the ad in their front office when you walked into their office in the Parliament building in Japan. Was that advertisement. So that was a moment when the world's voices were clearly heard. We were able to bring people from all over the planet represent their voices in a way the government would pay attention to. They were kind of shamed internationally, and they clearly heard it. And now the opposition party took power, and they have a much, much stronger climate policy. So we feel like we played some role in that evolution. It's pretty exciting when we do.
And why do you do what you do?
I do it, I think, for the same reasons that, let me see if I can start at that's a good question.
Maybe, how did you get involved as a younger man? What were the things that really motivated you?
I do this work, I think, for two reasons. One is that I believe in the same things that most people do, that human lives are equally precious no matter where people live, that the world should be a better place, that there should be stronger protections for the environment and for human rights. These are pretty common beliefs. But I think the other thing is that I've been lucky enough to experience the power of people to change things. And when you have the experience of making a difference, it can be intoxicating, and I think it can become a little addictive. So when I was a student in high school, Coca-Cola made a contract with my school district to become the only provider of of beverages in the hallways and in the cafeteria. They made this contract in the summer when students weren't around. I found out about it, and it turned out that the contract was actually to be able to give out like coupons in classrooms and just all this stuff. The school district was trying to get money, and Coca-Cola was promising they'd make all this money by essentially becoming Coca-Cola salesmen throughout the school. And to get the amount of money they were promising, they'd have to sell a Coke to every student every day during the entire school year in every grade. So I started organizing students to oppose this, and we put articles in the student paper we ran, and we went to school board meetings with signs and got to testify, and the media started noticing, and it caused this big, sort of outcry, and eventually the school district broke the contract. It was the first school district in the U.S. to renegotiate a contract like this. And it was this exciting feeling that we could actually have an effect. And then from there I found out that the reason they did this was the school district didn't have enough money, so I started organizing students to lobby for more funding for education throughout the whole state. And when people actually get together and add their voices together and say something, people listen. It happens so rarely that it's extraordinary when it does happen. And we had just a few hundred students, I think, were involved, but we were able to testify to all the legislators and leaders who were deciding on school budgets. So I think that once you try it and you see how well it works, I think that kind of sets the ball rolling. And once you do it, there's no reason to ever stop.